Well, thank you. It is very good to be here. Appreciate being here with you. And today, I will be talking about the Hedera network, which uses the Hashgraph algorithm. It is a very green network. It is helping people build all sorts of things on top of it. And the topic today, then, is ESG, environmental, societal, and governance activities. So ESG is a very hot topic right now. Many people are very interested in these topics. We ourselves, as a ledger, as a blockchain, are environmental and social and have good governance. But more importantly, people build on top of us. And there are many ESG applications being built right now. I do think that ledgers, blockchains, ledgers, DLTs, are having a huge impact now and will in the future on ESG applications and solving all sorts of problems. So the world, when it thinks about ESG questions, environmental questions, society questions, governance questions, the world needs something it can trust. That is why you need a blockchain or a ledger to give the world something they can trust when it comes to ESG. So Hedera enables this. E is the environment. It helps to manage pollution and waste, to track carbon emissions and energy usage, to trade green energy, to trade carbon credits. All of these things are part of the environmental impact of ledgers and of Hedera, what Hedera is enabling. And then there are social impacts of this. All sorts of things related to safety and quality and human rights. We'll talk about some of the applications for human rights and for improving society being built on Hedera and have been built and have been running now for quite a while for some of these applications. Also very important is privacy and data security, which can be enabled on this. A public ledger can have private things on top of it, things that give you control of your own information. And then there is governance. You can have things like DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, where people can vote on the ledger to control things. And the ledger itself has good governance. We'll talk about the governance of Hedera. So ESG is a hot topic right now. It is something that Hedera enables, and it is something that Hedera embodies. Now, if you are going to do anything on a ledger, especially ESG things, there are a number of challenges you have to have. Some ledgers use an enormous amount of electricity, which is problematic if you're trying to reduce carbon emissions. They can have low processing speeds. They can have high costs and unpredictable costs. If you're going to be building things around the world on a ledger, you want to exactly know what it is going to cost you. There can also be security vulnerabilities, and we have put a high premium on the security in Hedera, including against DDoS attacks. There is no leader in the system, not even for a second. And then, of course, centralization is a problem. You need to have decentralization. And lack of transparency is a problem. You need to have transparency. These are the concerns that people have if they're going to build anything on a ledger, including if they're going to build ESG applications on a DLT. So, what do we have? Well, the requirements are performance, security. We've talked about those two just now. Stability. You want to make sure that it isn't going to fork, it isn't going to split, and you want the price itself to be stable. You want the price to be stable even if the price of cryptocurrency is going up and down. You want good governance of the network itself. You want this governance to be something you can trust and something you can see that is happening. And then you want sustainability. The network itself should not be using lots of electricity, and it should be buying carbon offsets so that it's actually carbon neutral. And Hedera has the lowest carbon footprint of any ledger, even before it buys the offsets. And then the offsets make it carbon neutral. And then even more offsets we buy makes it carbon negative. So these are the things we need for public to adopt DLTs, the mainstream public outside of the blockchain world to adopt these, and we need these for ESG, and Hedera is providing these. The solution, of course, in Hedera is to do a ledger that is based on a hash graph. So instead of a blockchain where you put the blocks in a chain, it is built using a hash graph. The difference being that in a typical blockchain, the nodes take turns adding another block. They have to wait, which slows it down. And there's always a leader putting the next block. In proof of work, this is wasting energy in order to decide the next leader. In proof of stake, that's good. You're not wasting the energy. But if proof of stake has a leader, if you take turns being the leader, then the leader could be DDoSed, distributed denial of service. And if the leader is shut down, the blockchain stops growing until the attack ends. Hashgraph is different. Every node is creating blocks all the time, at the same time, not even putting them in order, sending them to all the other nodes, and then they use the hashgraph algorithm to put them in order. They don't take turns. There is no leader, even for a second. There is no way an attacker can shut down one computer and shut down the whole network, because there's never a leader. All the nodes are adding at the same time, and when all the nodes have collected the information, then, just locally, they put things in order. So it's very, very efficient. This allows us to build the Hashgraph consensus algorithm, that's the network. We have services on top. There is a smart contract service in very standard Solidity that you can just take other Solidity ledgers and just move the smart contract over and it runs without any changes. There is also a native token service. You can do ERC20s, you can do ERC 721s in your smart contracts, or you can do it natively, much faster, cheaper, and the two can talk to each other. Smart contracts can talk to the native tokens. So you have extra logic when you need it, but you have speed and high speed and low cost the rest of the time. 1/10 of a cent to send the token to someone else. And I said a cent because the prices are constant in US dollars. Even if the price of the token goes up and down, the price of the H-bar goes up and down, the price you pay to use it is constant. So we have these services. And then the consensus service. This is just for allowing you to store information immutably forever at 1/10 of a cent per piece of information you store. Or even to use the Hedera ledger as the consensus engine to run a private ledger. And then there's all sorts of applications and users on top of that. The governance of Hedera is very decentralized. I would say this is the most decentralized because it is 26 giant organizations, well-trusted organizations spread around the world under different governments, on different continents, every continent except Antarctica. And they are large organizations, top 10 universities in the world, top 100 businesses in the world, in different industries, very spread out. You could not bribe one of these for $1 million to do something bad. Their reputation is worth more to them than that. They are very highly interested in keeping a good reputation. And we have total transparency. If they do anything wrong, you will know it. And they govern the network. They vote on what features will be put in. They vote on what code changes will be done. They manage the token. They manage the prices. And they publish the minutes when they talk. Very decentralized, very open, that you can see what is going on. I would argue that this is far more open, far more decentralized than ledgers where there may be thousands, hundreds of thousands of nodes, and so theoretically they're all voting, but only a handful of core developers end up truly plotting the path, or only a handful of mining pools truly control the path of the network, and a few maybe famous figures control it. Here you have great transparency and decentralized governance of the network to bring the trust. It is all about trust. That's what we need in a network like this. And so, they are stewarding the network through this transparent on-ledger governance. So, we said ESG. We have a foundation that can be trusted Now, how can people build ESG on top of it? Well, the first part of ESG is the E, the environment. One part of the environment that is getting a great deal of discussion right now is carbon emissions. How much electricity do you use? And if you want to have your company be carbon negative, if you are not using solar panels to generate your electricity, you need to buy carbon offsets. So the idea is that if someone takes carbon out of the atmosphere and you're putting carbon into the atmosphere, you can buy a credit from them taking the carbon back out. And so then together, it's carbon neutral, which is a beautiful idea in theory. Unfortunately, there is quite a bit of fraud in the industry. Here are the ways that people produce the carbon credits. And I said, if you put carbon into the atmosphere, someone takes the carbon out, that's neutral. Great. But look at the bottom one there. That's how many carbon credits are for carbon renewal technology. When you round to the nearest integer, it's 0. It's almost no one does that. So where do carbon credits come from? Mostly from renewable energy. That's good. Windmills, solar panels, other renewable energy, hydro. And so people who create electricity with renewable resources can sell the carbon credits. Very good. And they might sell it to the person who is using the electricity. But it's more flexible if you have the ability to sell it to someone else. Wonderful. But what's number 2? Avoidable deforestation. Avoiding the deforestation, really. The idea is that if they are going to cut down a forest and someone saves it, they have saved the trees. The trees remove carbon from the atmosphere. There can be a carbon credit. That's great. Unfortunately, there's problems where someone saves a forest, but they sell the same credits to 2 different people. You're getting double credit for the same tree. That's a problem. Or even worse, there are problems where someone claims to have saved a forest, but it wasn't in danger anyway. That forest wasn't going to be cut down anyway. And so they haven't really reduced carbon at all or increased the carbon removal at all. Lots of fraud in this industry. And this is bad because many companies want to buy carbon credits, but there's lots of fraud. So what can you do? This is where blockchains, ledgers, DLTs have a role. If you take your carbon credits and you're recording it all on a ledger, and when you sell it, people are taking it and recording that on the ledger, then you can prevent double selling the same credit. And if you have to record exactly how you created each credit, then auditors can come along. You say which tree you saved, someone else can come along and say, but you didn't save that tree. That tree was on parkland. It wasn't going to die anyway. You can have auditing. You can have accountability. You can have all of the good things so that you can trust the carbon credits. Plus, as a bonus, if you are tokenizing your carbon credits, you can buy and sell them more easily. It brings greater efficiency to the markets. So in the ESG world, ledgers are incredibly important. And Hedera is doing this role, and people are building a number of different use cases on us for that. In addition, Hedera itself is very green in how much electricity it uses. So there was an external report. The University College of London, one of the top 10 universities in the world, did a report. The Center for Blockchain Technology analyzed electricity usage by ledgers. And you can read the report. It's at the URL there. And you can see their methodology, how they analyzed it. They were very rigorous in how they analyzed it. For each ledger, they said that ledger uses a range of energy. You can't always predict perfectly, so they gave their error bars. And they said, here's the minimum and maximum that they might be using in that ledger to do one transaction. And so what they did is this graph shows the average of the min and max, of the low and high estimate for each ledger. And you can see that For example, in Bitcoin, it takes more than 2 million watt hours of energy to do one transaction. Ethereum is 279 watt hours per transaction. That's Ethereum 2.0 after the merge. It was worse before the merge. This is better. But still, lots of energy per transaction. You can see Hedera down there is 0.03 watt hours per transaction. So these numbers that you see across the top of these bars, each number is the average of the low and high estimate that they came up with in the report. And so what you can see is that, say, Algorand and Visa are using 100 times as much energy per transaction as Hedera. And that's interesting. Your Visa card, when you buy something in the grocery store with your Visa card, that transaction of buying something is using electricity. And if you look behind the scenes, it's using 100 times as much electricity as Hedera would have. And so Ethereum is 9,000 times as much. Bitcoin is 67 million times as much. Lots of electricity. So this is how it works. Now this, of course, was energy. There's also social safety. The centralized world that we're coming to with metaverses and social media, Twitter and Facebook and all the different ways people communicate is very centralized today. There are people who want it to stay centralized, watching what you do, not having data privacy. But what our vision is shared worlds, lots of separate social media that interact, lots of separate VR worlds that interact. The metaverse is many worlds interacting, and you control your own data. And this is what we enable, and there are people building this on us. In fact, there are people building many things on us. DLA Piper is one of the world's largest legal firms. They are tokenizing all sorts of things of value, fine art and other things, including carbon credits, so that you can buy and sell carbon credits. LG Electronics is tokenizing fine art that you can display on your screen. I love that. If you have a television set from LG, it can be your art display of the NFTs that you have bought, actually having a wallet inside your television set. I love that. And in addition, this will allow green tokenization of things like carbon credits. Standard Bank is doing remittances, and they're also doing green bonds, both of these on Hedera, so that you can have green projects, environmental projects that get funded through selling these bonds. Avery Dennison tracks objects going through a supply chain, parts and final products, and going through the warehouses to the stores, and they are tracking energy usage, fuel usage in transportation and in the manufacturing, so that you can track your carbon output, and then you can buy carbon credits to offset it. ServiceNow is dealing with process integrity, very similar, and also tracking carbon. Guardian is a very cool system that helps businesses, is a set of tools to help businesses track. What are my carbon emissions? How many carbon credits have I bought? How do they match up? And audits all of that, tokenizes pieces of it or manages the tokens for a DMRV, Digital Measurement Reporting and Verification System. It isn't just energy, though, and carbon. It's also social use cases like HALA, humanitarian crises. People around the world can report problems in war zones and other places and have it immutably stored in the web, in the ledger that then is displayed on the web. It can be digitally signed. It can be audited. You can trust it because you see who the auditors were. All of this to make the world a better place, just like Starling is as well. Recording information, Holocaust survivors, and documenting elections, including the Capitol riots that were in the United States on January 6th. War crimes, all of these are being documented immutably on the ledger to bring transparency to the world, to make the world a better place, better society. And governance when it comes to elections, so ES and G. Timeless is again doing carbon credits and reporting, and Dovu is tracking how this changes over time. So these are all the different use cases for environment, for social, for governance, all being done on Hedera because of the speed, the predictable prices, the good governance of Hedera itself. And Hedera itself is good governance, good social, and good environmental. And I told you that we're carbon neutral, which is good. We counteract all the electricity we use, but the best electricity is the electricity you don't use, and we use less than any other major ledger. So this is what we are doing for ESG, what other people are doing in ESG. I thank you for this, and I thank you for your attention today. It is a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Leemon Baird. We have one question from the floor.
One question.
Yes, so let me read it out for you.
Yes.
Recent collaboration with LG was very meaningful. What do you think would be the main reason for LG to choose Hedera as their main NFT platform?
Excellent question. LG is very exciting. I showed you about that, where you can put these NFTs on your television. You can buy NFTs of fine art, and this is just the beginning. The wallet itself is in your television. Art Lab is very exciting. Why did they choose Hedera? Hedera is very fast. It is also very secure. Some ledgers are slow. So, with Bitcoin, you're slow, but there's no leader at any moment that you could shut down the network, so you're good for DDoS resilience. Other ledgers are fast, but they do have a DDoS problem. There's leaders that take turns. Hedera is both fast and secure. They were very interested in that. It has low prices, like many ledgers do, but predictable prices, which is important for real businesses and important for consumers. And so they were very excited about these things that Hedera provides. The good governance allows you to trust Hedera, and that was also a big part of it.
Well, thank you for that answer. And that was the last question for you.
Wow.
So, yeah, thank you very much once again. 한번 박수 부탁드립니다.
Thank you very much, and thank you.